Hey there, I'm Michael Williams, your island chef. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be working on a beautiful cut of meat. Make it right and it's so tender, melt in your mouth. We're talking about the blade, the shoulder of the beef. So we've got a nice boneless blade roast here and a boneless blade steak. So I'm going to show you how to play with these. We're going to make a couple of recipes. We're going to start off with a vegetable beef goulash. And then we're going to go on to our next recipe, which is a snowball simmered steak. So both cuts coming from the shoulder, I'm going to show you how to work with those. But first, I've got this song stuck in my head. Home, home on the range. You know that song? It's been stuck in my head since I was on the range. Here we are on beautiful Denman Island. We're at Lone Pine Farm, which is one of 5 farms under the Island Pastures umbrella. What they do is they supply Country Grocer with incredible pasture-raised, grass-fed beef. We're going to be talking to Doug Wright today, who's a 3rd-generation farmer, working these lands every day to produce my favorite steak. We're going to go find Doug right now and ask him some questions. Hey, Doug.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So I understand you got some cows out here.
I got some cows.
Let's go check out some cows.
Sure. I'll go introduce you to Spooky.
Oh, Spooky.
Spooky.
Nice. That sounds great. You know, Doug, I've been on a lot of farms in my day, but I've never seen one so beautiful. The ocean view and everything else. This is incredible.
It was my father's pride and joy, this place.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Now, do the cows do better with an ocean view and the sea breeze?
I'm sure they get lots of benefits from being on the ocean.
You know, Doug, looking at these cows, they sure do look fit and healthy, you know, compared to your typical kind of image of a cow you see on TV.
Yeah, these cows are healthy. They're not overweight. They're just, you know, they're just happy cows.
Yeah, they're really, really beautiful animals.
Yeah. Here's something you might find interesting, Mike. It's an old mower and a rake back from the 1920s or 1910.
These were horse-drawn, I guess?
Horse-drawn,
Yeah.
yeah. The old-timers really had to work to do what we do today.
I bet you're pretty thankful for tractors.
You bet. And as a matter of fact, Mike, this farm in the day used to supply produce, dairy products to Union Bay and the coal mines in Cumberland. And that, you know, probably goes back to the 1880s and 1890s when they first started.
Wow, so it'd hop a ferry over there.
Rowboat.
Rowboat. Oh, I guess there wasn't ferries back then, was there?
No.
That's a little ignorant.
Yeah.
So, Doug, that was back then. But what about now? I'm looking out at the field here and I see a bunch of cows. Grass-fed, pasture-raised beef. That's what you're raising here, right?
That's correct, Mike.
Okay.
I love the animals.
Tell me a little bit about your day-to-day here and how you take care of these animals.
Well, the animals, pretty much, especially in the summertime, they're given the free range
Yep.
of the farm, and
Yeah.
they have lots of space and can wander around.
I'm seeing a lot of space.
And I have one pasture that they're not using yet. So,
Yeah, wow.
But giving them space, you know, makes for a healthier animal.
Yeah.
We don't have to treat with antibiotics. They're eating a lot of the grasses that grow here. The grasses, you know, very green. They're high in vitamin E, and the natural grasses tend to build more or a different kind of fat than, say, a grain-fed.
Right. Now, one of the reasons I'm a big fan of grass-fed beef is because of what some people say is a healthier fat profile. Even omega-3s, like who needs your fish oils?
Well, that's what some researchers tell us.
Yeah.
You know, up to 6 times more omega-3s than you get off a grain-fed.
That is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
tell me, what happens when the grass stops growing? What did the cows eat then?
Well, remember that pasture I was telling you about?
Yeah.
So when the grass dries out here,
Yeah.
I have a pasture that hasn't been touched up there for a couple months. So
Okay.
they'll go in there and they'll eat in there for a couple of months, and after that, which is probably getting into November, the hay becomes available to them in the barn. So the cows get fed twice a day.
Okay.
And they come into the barn, they eat as much as they want to, and then they come back out in this lower pasture here again, and they do what you see them doing now.
So, you know, myself being a grass-fed beef lover, I know that it's got just a little bit more flavor than grain-fed. Would you agree with that, Doug?
I like the word crisp.
Yeah.
I have, you know, friends that eat my beef, and they say it's got just a totally different flavor.
Yeah.
You can taste the beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you know, some people seem to be a little bit confused about grass-fed beef as if it needs to be cooked differently. For me, I'm just a little bit careful because it's easy to overcook. It's easy to dry it out. I don't really cook it differently. I'm just cautious, and I definitely am wary of overcooking it. Does that make sense?
I would say that's fairly accurate. I think the fat on a grain-fed animal is a heavier fat. It's a different kind of fat, so you can cook the meat longer, and it stays moisture, whereas the fats off a grass-fed animal is a very light fat, and if you
kind of melts away easily,
it'll disappear a lot quicker.
Yeah, so maybe if you're, you know, a medium kind of steak person with conventional, you know, grain-fed beef, maybe medium rare might be a little bit better for grass-fed, I wonder.
I've done lots of steaks, and medium seems to work for me.
Yeah.
But, you know, you probably want to stay away from medium well done.
Yeah, well, I do that any day anyways.
Yeah, but medium rare is how I like my steaks.
Yeah, me too.
And
I'm a medium rare guy. So I really appreciate you showing me around here. This has been awesome. I'm gonna head back and do some cooking with some Island Pastures beef, but there's one thing. You forgot to show me Spooky.
Oh, Spooky's my very protective mother. She loves her kids. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Is that her right there?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Hi, Spooky. I really enjoyed that. Never been to such a spectacular place, and now we get to work with some of the great product from that location. So let's get into it, shall we? As I was saying, we're working with boneless blade roast here. And as it turns out, in terms of stew, you know, if you just go buy some stewing beef from most any grocery store, usually it comes from the hip, which isn't really the best cut for stew. This, however, is the perfect cut. Now, if you want that kind of tender, just fall apart in your mouth, melt in your mouth kind of stew, what you need is this right here, a boneless blade roast, okay? So what I'm gonna do, we're not gonna roast this as a roast, we're going to cut this up into cubes and use it for steak, because this is the perfect cut for stewing. Our goulash is a stew of sorts. So I'm gonna cut this in half, get it into kind of a little bit more manageable size, and then we'll cut some little mini steaks. Okay, get through that. And you see it's all this connective tissue here that really does well with the stew. It takes a while to break down, and once it does break down, tenderness, deliciousness, amazing. Okay, and once you get your somewhat steaks, you just kind of break it into little chunks like so, and those are ready for stewing action. All right, now you know what? I've got about 450 grams, almost 500 grams there. This is a 900 gram roast, so that's gonna be good for our goulash, and we'll use this for our snowball simmered steak. So we're gonna set this over here for now. I'm gonna get washed up. Now, always want to wash up after you've been working with meat, and that includes your favorite knife, if you have one. All right, so now we're ready to get our veggies ready for our veggie and beef goulash. So let's get into that. First, we're just gonna slice or dice, I don't know. What do you think? Should we slice or dice? Let's dice. Dice some red onion. All right, so just gonna roughly dice this. So we've got a bit of a blemish we wanna get rid of there. Okay, this is a very rustic dish, so chunks are okay fine. And same with this guy. Let's get into the garlic. Got a few cloves here that are ready to be peeled. Make sure you crush them really well. You've seen my fry pan trick, but when you just need a few at a time, just use the side of your knife. Great, okay, let's get that out of the way. And then as I said, we'll just, maybe we'll get rid of that. Any glaring stemmy parts, and just give this a couple chops, nice and rough. Okay, so now, actually let's do one more thing. Just kind of rolling on the fly here. A little bit of jalapeno. Make sure you wash your hot peppers really well. They happen to be a favorite of the bugs. Delicacy, hot peppers are, believe it or not. You see how once that's into quarters, really easy to get rid of the seeds and the veins. We'll just give that a rough chop as well. All right, so our pot is nice and hot. One of my favorite oils for high temperature cooking, the old coconut. A little bit of coconut oil. Let's grab our tongs and get our beef going. Just give a second for that coconut oil to warm up, and then in the beef goes. You need to make sure you hear that sizzle. That's really important. Okay, and I'll just add this in slowly. Make sure we don't overload our pot. I think we're good there. So we're just looking to get a little bit of color on our beef. Brown it on all sides, because once we get the rest of our components into here, there won't be any more browning happening. You'll see why soon enough. Let's, for convenience sake, scoop these guys up. So take a peek. Nicely browned our beef. A little bit of caramelization happening on the bottom of that pot. We're ready for our vegetables. And now we're just gonna saute these up a little bit, get some color, get back in there. And then shortly thereafter, we're gonna add some spices, and we're gonna get our liquid in there. All right, so liquid, is it? Yeah, liquid. Guess what? Guess what we got for liquid? Tomatoes. Into the blender they go. We're gonna need about 4 cups once she's all said and done. Let's turn these tomatoes into liquid. Beautiful. So we've got our liquid. Now we just need some salt, cumin. We're also going to give it a kiss of molasses. So this has had a few minutes, and our veggies are nicely roasted now. So we're just going to add in our salt, some whole cumin seeds. I'm going to be fairly liberal with these guys. As you may know, I love cumin. Okay. And just before we add our tomatoes, whoops, lost our lid. That's all right. We're gonna give it a little touch of molasses here. Oh man, that smells amazing. And then quickly after that molasses goes in, we're gonna get our tomatoes in there. I left them a little bit chunky. Let the cooking process do the rest. So just stir that in. All right, so the clock is on. That beef's gonna need about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes to get nice and tender. Just before we get to that stage, we're gonna add some other veggies to the pot, but we're gonna take a break right now and move on to our next recipe, snowball simmered steak. All right, let's get our steaks on. 1, 2 for me, and we'll save the last one for puppy dog. Want to get a nice brown on both sides of that. Okay, so while those are browning up, we're gonna chop up a little bit of onion and a couple tomatoes and some garlic, of course. And then, where's that snowball coming from? Right here. This is a locally made, in Langford in fact, sauce. And it's a sauce. They call it an everything sauce, and I love it. It's great. You can do lots of different things with it. We're actually going to use this sauce to simmer / braise our steak in. So we'll get to that. Let's get our onions ready to go. So we're just going to really rustically slice up this onion. See that little flip at the end? Easiest way to get the last little bit instead of dealing with that sloping angle. Okay, peeling your garlic, always much easier if you cut the tops and the bottoms off first. See how easy that is to peel, hey? Got some little guys there I'll save for another day. Perhaps a rainy one. And now, always keep it clean, keep it organized. We'll just give these, that little piece of skin just won't go away. There we go. A couple of rough chops again, my nice chunky garlic, that's how I love it. Now we're also gonna do up some tomato. Cut it into quarters, roughly chop that. Okay, so now our steak is ready for a flip. See, that's perfect. Nice looking color here. Looking great. Let's season these guys up. Salt and pepper. In fact, I just remembered that I forgot pepper in here, so we're gonna get some in there too. Keep our goulash happy. And you know, our pan is actually ready for our onions and garlic. So we'll get those right into the pan. Once we're happy with the browning on the second side, we'll pull our steaks out and just finish off the onions and the garlic. And we'll be ready to get our simmering steaks simmering along with our snowball sauce. So, onions, garlic, browned, steaks, nicely browned. We're ready to move on to stage 2 because that was stage 1. Stage 1 is done. All right, so here's how stage 2 works. You get your steaks. You get your onions and your garlic. Okay? Get all that onto the foil. Perfect. Okay, so how we get this ready for the oven, which is where stage 2 is. Take some fresh tomatoes. Looks like we don't quite need all of that. Okay, and now it's time for the snowball. So we're gonna dump on about anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 cup. It all depends on kind of how much steak you're working with. Point being, once everything's all wrapped up, you want to have a good amount of sauce in there so it's kind of rising up. So now it's time to close this up, and we want to get a pretty good seal, okay? We want to get the air trapped in here. This is a technique called en papillote, as a French chef would say. In a pocket. I think that's what it translates into. I can't remember. I'm Am I right? Let me know if I'm wrong. Okay, and then fold up the edges, and you can see we've got this nice little pocket here. And that is ready to go into the oven. So, 300 degrees for a couple of hours. I've already done it. I did it already. Let's take a look at what it looks like. I can't wait to dig into this. It's not too hot, so I can put it right down on the counter. I'm gonna peel this open and have a look and have a taste. Here it is, moment of truth. Now, that looks beautiful for one. For two, if we did this right, it should be real. Oh, look at that. Look at it. It's just falling apart. Beautiful. So tender. Oh. Oh my goodness. That's awesome. That is, oh, super good. Lovely sauce. Extra flavors with the onions and the garlic and the tomato. This is a winner right here. There is our snowball simmered steak. I haven't forgotten though. We got to finish this guy off. All right, so let's get working on the second stage of our goulash. We've got a few veggies in there, but instead of just a few, we want more. So we're gonna yam it up first. Yams will need about 10 minutes to soften up if I cut them right. All right, so this guy, are you a girl or a guy? I think it's a guy, is peeled. Let's get it cut up. We're just gonna dice, get our compost going over here. We're gonna dice this up. So just to do that, I'm gonna give myself a little bit more manageable. It's a little bit too long, so now it's gonna be a little bit more manageable. Now, here's a tip for you. So anytime you have a vegetable that's not stable on the cutting board, you wanna give it some stability. So by the time you make your first cut, then you flip it over onto that cut side, then you start working with it. I'm just gonna trim that end off for discard. And we're just gonna cut these into little cubes. So I make my slices like that. Got a couple of piles going here. And then once you get those lined up, you can cut this way. Again, rustic, right? Now look, we got these strips here. So then we make our last cut. There we go. So the big tip there, after you make your first cut, you want it nice and stable. All right. Yams are ready to get in. Oh, just popping that lid off. Smells incredible. Wow. Looking forward to this. So we're just gonna stir those yams right in. And you know, we've just concentrated down nicely. Left the lid on, it's just been simmering away on low. Nice and gentle to that meat. Now we wanna soften those yams up. I'm just gonna turn it up a touch. So giving those yams a bit of a head start, we'll now work on our su choy, okay? Sometimes known as Napa cabbage. So sticking with that rustic theme, all we're gonna do is chop this up like so. So we're basically just gonna plunk this down on top. We're gonna let the steam take care of it. All right, we're 10 minutes in now. Let's see how we're looking. That cabbage is softened up just from the steam action that's happening. And now we stir it in. Our yams should be soft, our beef should be tender. This is looking fantastic. One of those lovely one-pot meals. All right, it's time to taste this delicious looking goulash. So we've given enough time for that meat to get tender. Now it's kind of, you know, did everything all work out? How did the yams come? Is the meat tender? beautiful. Yams, just right. Cabbage, nice. So there we have it. Vegetable beef goulash. Turned out really nice. Loving this recipe. So, I hope you all had as much fun as I did. A great visit to a beautiful farm, working with a fantastic cut of meat. The shoulder blade, boneless blade, whatever you call it. Fantastic, delicious, love it. We made a couple of recipes with it, in fact. We did our vegetable and beef goulash, and then we finished it off with our second recipe, which was the snowball simmered steak. Both of them were fantastic, tender, delicious. Both recipes, actually, you'll find countrygrocer.com. They're there for you along with hundreds of others. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time. And as promised, Puppy Dog gets a special treat. Livy!
Country Grocer.